All right, so I am going to be talking about the large project for COP 4331 at the University of Central Florida. So first, let me congratulate you on finishing the small project, which is a full stack application using the LAMP stack. So this is actually pretty good. It's the first time you've probably been on such a large team-based project. Some of you may have, but for most of you, it's a first. So some of the first though I saw here was pagination, single key press searches, some really amazing UIs, and lazy loading. So those were all really nice firsts. Here are some reminders. Everyone must turn in your PowerPoint before your presentations. Please don't zip it. You are allowed to change teams now, and hopefully over the hurricane period you were able to do that. So you are required to use a domain name for the web app, and I'm going to suggest that you continue to use the same domain that you used for the last project. We will be using DigitalOcean again. However, we're going to be using DigitalOcean without the MySQL, without the Apache web server, and without the PHP. Your team size should be 5 to 7. I know a lot of you are going to ask me about 8, but it just really makes it much more difficult when you have large teams. So teams, let's talk about them. So you need to do your part, do what you say you will do. And I know for the last project, some people did not do their part and they got away with that, and they got the same grade as everybody else. But I'm going to suggest you actually have some honor and go ahead and make sure you do your part. Be very respectful to team members. Even if one person knows everything, split up the work. I had a guy about 5 or 6 years ago. He'd spent 30 years working at Oracle, and so he did know everything, and he went ahead and did most everything. It's not fair to the other team members if you go in there and do it yourself. You can't wait to get started. I know that when a lot of you did your presentations, you said your time management could have been better, and you could have started earlier, and all that kind of stuff. So you need to go ahead and get started right away. So here are the requirements. The actual complete set of rubrics is on the web course. I have an assignment called Large Project. Look at that. It's got a very complete set of requirements. So you need the following general requirements. You need a remote database, and I'm requiring you to use MongoDB. Not that MongoDB is really the best choice for this, but here again, I have to teach you how to use a NoSQL database. And now you might ask, well, why not Firebase? Because I need to keep you at least in the same, sort of ecosystem that everybody else is in. You have to do a remote API, and this API will be using Express, which is, I think, a lot easier than a PHP. You have to create a web app, and you're going to have to use React. And finally, a mobile app. You can do iOS or Android on. You can use maybe Android Studio for the Android, or Xcode for the iOS. I do prefer though that you do a cross-platform application using Flutter. Documentation, Gantt chart, ERD use case. That's nothing new. The Gantt chart should be a lot more useful now that you're starting at the very beginning. You also are required to do either a sequence or an activity diagram. Here again, you're required to use Swagger Hub for your API. You need to make a class diagram for mobile app. I know that I gave a lecture on that, and I haven't done the lecture yet for unit and integration tests, but a testing plan along with unit and integration tests are required. You're also required to use prototypes and wireframes. Figma is free and it's pretty good. You must use a JavaScript framework, as I said, not straight CSS, HTML. So I'm actually requiring you to use React. Specifically, the front end must be done in TypeScript, and so there are two things on the TypeScript. I'm going to do the getting started with MERN A shortly, and releasing that video later on today. It will use TypeScript for the front end, and I will also do a TypeScript lecture on Monday. So I'm going to mandate the following. React, notice I have Angular and Vue scratched off. I would also strongly suggest that you use the Bootstrap library. A lot of people prefer Tailwind, that's fine. Even Material UI works pretty good. The stack is a MERN stack. Even though I love the Python libraries for creating API endpoints, I'm not going to allow you to use them. So prototypes for your web app and mobile app are required. Most people are going to use Figma, but you can use whatever you want. You could even technically just use Word or PowerPoint using their draw tools. Not highly recommended, by the way, but you could. You do need to add email verification. So you need email verification. I would suggest that it's probably not quite as simple as you might think. When they first register, you send an email verification to their email address, and then they have to either click, got it, blah, 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 register me, or you have to give them a code to type in. So those are two different ways of doing it. You also need to allow them to do a password reset. So there are lots of options. I usually use SendGrid or NodeMailer, but just please. So I've had students have trouble with both of those, depending on what's going on. They normally work pretty good, but you never know when you're going to get hung up. So I would suggest have one person on your team probably do the email verifications, and try to start it now so it's done and you don't have to worry about it. The mobile app, you're going to have to use Flutter if you're going to do cross-platform, and I do suggest you use cross-platform. But if you want to use Android Studio for an Android native code or Xcode for a native iOS code, that's also acceptable. Security. So we had like 0 on this small project. Here I'm requiring you to use a JWT, and I actually have a lecture I will give on that. So you can either figure it out yourself or just wait. I think I give the lecture in about a week and a half. So what kind of project can you do? So this is kind of up in the air. This is open to you. Whatever you want to do is fine, except for like a project that has like YouTube links. That's not going to work. Or please do not do any Spotify API or Spotify list projects. But in the past, a lot of people have done menu programs with menus and that you can cook or whatever. Nutritional programs that shows you what a meal might provide in terms of nutrition. Exercise programs, those are usually pretty good. Teaching games, no games by the way, but a teaching game you'd be able to get away with that. Political programs, research-oriented programs. Just think of something that you'd like to do, and that usually turns out to be a better teaching experience than me telling you. I know that Contact program was not that great, but at least you all did the same thing and learned how to do a full stack app. So anyway, you might want to ask me on this week your idea, pitch me your idea, and let me know what, and ask me what I think, and I'll tell you. Of course, obviously, I'll tell you. But I'm fairly lenient on this. As long as you have a remote database, a web app, a mobile app, I'm usually pretty good. So the projects will go pretty quickly. We're actually about 2 weeks behind chronologically. Just make sure you have all your documentation. Make sure your slides, you talk about the description of the technology, what went right and wrong. You have to have the complete demo. You have to have the Swagger Hub. And you have to show your unit integration testing results. You don't have to do it in class during your presentation. Just do a screen cap.